Right. So it's interesting to hear you talk about the long-term measures because Nigerians have been asking about what exactly government is doing within this 150-day period to give us some security after the window is over. But I'd like you to also react to other matters. The NLC has threatened to go on strike, one-month strike, if the governors force the National Assembly to decentralize minimum wage. And some Nigerians are saying the centralization of minimum wage may not work in a country like Nigeria where this decentralization can be manipulated by governors. And there needs to be a benchmark that nobody can go below but can go above. I mean, if not, some governors will announce, 20,000 naira as minimum wage. I'd like you to react to that.
Thank you very much, Jumoke. You know, I was very privileged and really, obviously, with a job like the one I have and the access to information I have, I'm humbled and privileged every day to work where I work. I know that it's a rare privilege. I was privileged to be in the room last Thursday when the leadership of organized labor in the country, particularly the NLC president and the TUC president, met President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the State House. And you know, aside from, applauding the judgment that came out of the Supreme Court, that led to essentially local government financial autonomy, that one of the major aspects of the conversation had to do also with whether or not and to what extent can we be creative in the evolution and crafting of a medium to long-term strategy on this question of a minimum wage. And I think the president gave organized labor a lot to think about, and they asked for 1 week to come back. That week elapses tomorrow, so expect an engagement tomorrow as a follow-up. But what I would say is that we're fortunate that we elected a financial engineer and someone who thinks very creatively outside of the box on how to craft solutions really out of very difficult and limited resources and circumstances. And that is the case here. The president is thinking through many options. I think some of the options on the table include the opportunity potentially to have a minimum wage that is not necessarily fixed into perpetuity. We don't necessarily have to agree today that whatever minimum wage we agree on today will last for the next 30 or 40 years. We don't have to play that game anymore. What we can actually do is be a little bit more creative and think through, based on the verifiable economic conditions of the country and based on the verifiable resource constraints of the country as it is today, that we can fashion out an agreement with organized labor on a minimum wage that would be scaled against the economic realities of the country as they continue to improve. We know that the economy is on an upswing. We know that inflation is going to be tracking down as revenues track up. We are seeing those trends right now. But what we are saying is, because we know that things are going to track upwards and that we're climbing out of a pit at the moment, that because of that confidence we have in that, we can actually say, based on the economic realities and financial constraints of the country today, we can peg a minimum wage at a certain place and agree together with you, organized labor, for example, that over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, as conditions improve, we can now phase it up in accordance with the economic growth of the country and the revenue growth of the country, so that it's a win-win for everybody. Everybody knows that we're not in an all-out war depending on what happens today, that if you don't win today, then you die. No, nobody's dying. Everybody's alive, and we'll face tomorrow. So let's approach today's negotiation with the view that we will be at the table tomorrow once again.
All right, so 2 more issues, and I'd like us to manage our time very well. So finally, Nigerians can now visit Dubai, but it looks like there are some restrictions. According to reports circulating, there's a conversation about 700,000 naira for document verification, 10,000 naira, I do apologize, $10,000 in your bank account. And for a mutually beneficial country, Nigerians think the federal government should have negotiated better. So can you confirm the authenticity of this report?
I think it is not in the position of a presidential spokesperson or, frankly, any government spokesperson to be getting into anything that is considered confidential within the agreements that are signed between two countries or more countries. I think that that would be irresponsible on my part, and I wouldn't take part in that. What I would say is this. There was a lot of doubt about whether or not the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was going to succeed in getting this visa ban that had been standing for years removed. There was skepticism and trepidation around the idea of whether or not the Emirates Airlines would ever fly into the country again. For example, direct flights to the UAE. And, of course, as always, the president doesn't talk a lot, but he delivers a lot. And that's the case here. The Nigerians have seen that Emirates has announced that they are returning to the country later this year. Nigerians have seen that the visa ban has indeed been lifted and that the agreement between the two heads of state has held up to reality. It is true. It has happened. It's being implemented. And so, look, this is another fruit of the very successful engagement the president has had with his counterparts around the world, and another bit of evidence as to the rising credibility and reputational integrity of our country in the global community of nations, that people are ready to honor their agreements with us because they recognize that we are being led by a serious leader, a reforming leader, a leader who will take bold decisions that will reposition the Nigerian economy and the Nigerian nation for future growth. And that is growth that that countries around the world are now trying to tap into, which is why you're seeing the moves that other countries are making to fix whatever would have gone wrong, in relation to their relationship with past administrations in the country. So Nigerians should be excited about the new development, and they should expect more because the president is going to deliver more. And the more he goes out, the more loved Nigeria becomes. And this is why we elected him to be our chief ambassador, and this is why Nigerians should be optimistic that tomorrow's Nigeria is going to be much better than today's.
All right, then. Sadly, we're out of time, but, I mean, probably next time we speak, we'll talk about all you've been doing in your capacity as Special Presidential Envoy on Climate Action. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Ngelale, Special Advisor to the President on Media